Welcome to Learning English with Common Ground International. I'm Misty Davidson. I'm an ESL teacher at Common Ground, and we're glad to have you with us today. Our lesson today is about adverbs of frequency. How often do you do something? We're going to talk about how often we do things, and you'll have a chance again to practice at the end. What is our objective today? At the end of this lesson, you will recognize many common adverbs and expressions of frequency, and you will know how to use them. Let's begin. What is an adverb of frequency? An adverb of frequency tells you how often you do something. It goes in specific places in the sentence, and we're going to talk about them now. We're going to talk about some common adverbs of frequency and where we place them. Some very common ones, always, 100% of the time. I always do this. Every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No exceptions. Almost always, about 80 to 99% of the time. Maybe I skip a day once in a while, but pretty close to always. Okay, here are a group of words that all mean kind of the same thing. Usually, frequently, regularly, often, fairly often, pretty regularly, about 51% to 79% of the time, more or less in that range. And you may be asking, well, how do I know what 51% of the time is, what 78% of the time is, 79? Well, you don't. You use your judgment. Nobody is going to be saying, oh, I have my calculator. What percentage of the time are you doing this? That won't happen. Just use your judgment. Sometimes, about half the time, 50-50. Occasionally, 30 to 49% of the time, a little less than 50% of the time. Rarely, seldom or pretty rarely, 10 to 29% of the time. Hardly ever or almost never, 1 to 9% of the time. Means maybe once in a while you might do something, but not often. And never 0% of the time. No exceptions. It doesn't happen. Now you know some common expressions. Where do we put these? We use adverbs of frequency, first of all, with the simple present tense or the simple past tense, because they have to do with habit. We don't use them with the present continuous tense. The present continuous tense has to do with right now. How often you do something has to do with habit, so we use it with simple present, or if we talk about the simple past. They answer the question, how often do you do something? Let's look at them in a sentence. We're going to talk about the be verb first. The rules are a little bit different with the be verb than with other verbs. The placement of an adjective of frequency is different with the be verb, am, are, or is, or was, than with other verbs. Some adverbs of frequency can go in more than one place in a sentence. Let's look at the be verb. We have this formula, subject, be, am, are, or is, or was, or were, adverb of frequency, and adjective. With the be verb, we have adjectives. Let's look at an example. She is often sick. She is the subject, is be, often is the adverb of frequency, and sick, the adjective, describes her. So subject, she, is, be, often, adverb of frequency, sick, adjective. They were never happy in Florida. They is the subject, were is be, never adverb of frequency, and happy, adjective. He is usually late for work. More often than not, he's late for work. He is subject, be is, usually adverb of frequency, late is adjective. Okay, now we're going to look at adverbs of frequency with all other verbs. Anything that's not the be verb. Anything else. We do it just the opposite. We have subject, adverb of frequency, verb. So for anything else, the adverb comes before the verb. Joe rarely eats breakfast. Joe is the subject, rarely is the adverb, eats is the verb. I hardly ever drink coffee. I is the subject, hardly ever is the adverb, drink is the verb. Last year we occasionally ate out. We is the subject, occasionally the adverb, ate is the verb in past tense. It was our habit occasionally last year to eat out. Now let's look at adverbs of frequency that can go in different places in the sentence. Usually can also go at the beginning of the sentence. Usually I eat eggs for breakfast. I usually eat eggs for breakfast. Either way is correct. Some adverbs of frequency can go at the end of a sentence. Fairly often. It's a two-word one. Maria goes to the gym fairly often. This pretty much only makes sense at the end of a sentence. Pretty regularly. I call my family pretty regularly. Again, this goes at the end of the sentence. Some adverbs of frequency can be placed at the beginning of the sentence, the end of the sentence, or in the usual place depending on the verb. So there are some where you have a choice. It's kind of good because it's hard to be wrong that way. No matter where you put it, you're probably okay. Let's look at some of those. One of them is often. Often, I read mysteries. At the beginning, at the end, I read mysteries often. And in the usual place, I often read mysteries before the verb. Let's look at another one where you have a choice, where it's hard to be wrong. Frequently. Frequently, I travel. I travel frequently, beginning or the end, or guess what? How would you do it in the regular place? She frequently travels for work before the verb. Sometimes. We have a choice for sometimes. We're going to use the be verb in this. Sometimes my sister is angry. The beginning. The end. My sister gets angry sometimes. I change the verb a little bit, but at the end. And in the usual place, it's the be verb, so the verb comes first. My sister is sometimes angry. Any of those placements is fine. Occasionally. We have a lot of choices. Occasionally, I go out dancing. I go out dancing occasionally. I occasionally go out dancing. Any of those placements is fine. Beginning, end, or before the verb. Let's talk about some things we can do with adverbs of frequency. We can answer questions with adverbs of frequency. Let's see some examples. How often do you eat vegetables? Notice it's not a complete sentence. Almost always. I try to eat veggies at every meal. Or if you don't like veggies, never. Not a complete sentence. I hate vegetables. It's too bad, they're good. You should try them. Okay, we've talked about adverbs of frequency. We're going to talk about some expressions of frequency that have the same meaning as the adverbs of frequency that you hear often in conversation in English. Expressions of frequency consist of several words. They also tell how often you do something. We usually place them either at the beginning or at the end of the sentence. They can be either way. Most of the time, either way is good, not in the middle. Let's look at one, all the time. All the time means always or almost always. I do things for him all the time. This expression works best at the end of a sentence. The others could go either way. I do things for him all the time. Most of the time means usually. At the beginning, most of the time I like my job. I like my job most of the time. At the end, it means the same thing. Either way is good. Once in a while means occasionally. Once in a while, my sister calls me. My sister calls me once in a while. From time to time. It means the same as sometimes, 50-50. From time to time, Sarah visits the zoo. Sarah visits the zoo from time to time. Okay, we can say once a week, once a month, once a year, twice a day, etc. Once a week, David plays football. Now we're going to use a different one in the next example, but it will go at the end. David plays basketball twice a month. Once in a lifetime, it means just that. One time in your entire lifetime. Once in a lifetime, you might win the lottery. You might win the lottery once in a lifetime. Not very often. That means seldom, rarely, or hardly ever. We use this expression to answer questions. How often do you go to the theater? Not very often. It's too expensive. Okay, we have a lot of adverbs of frequency, a lot of ways to place them, and some expressions of frequency. Let's do some practice. You're going to see a sentence. You're going to rewrite or re-speak each sentence and use the adverb or expression of frequency in parentheses. Sometimes there will be more than one correct answer. We'll try to go over as many possibilities as possible. We ready? Let's go. I wake up at 6 a.m. Almost always. If you have, I almost always wake up at 6 a.m., you are correct. Almost always goes before the verb. Good job. Let's try another one. Roberto exercises at 24-hour fitness sometimes. You'll have some choices in this. I'll give you a little extra time. Roberto sometimes exercises at 24-hour fitness. How else can we do this? You got it. Sometimes Roberto exercises at 24-hour fitness. One more way. Roberto exercises at 24-hour fitness sometimes. Muslims eat pork. Never. Only one way to do this. Muslims never eat pork. Okay, you're going to have some choices in this one. My brother took the bus to work last year. Occasionally. I'll give you a little bit of time. My brother occasionally took the bus to work last year. That's placing it before the verb. We can place it in the beginning. Occasionally, my brother took the bus to work last year. Or at the end, my brother took the bus to work last year occasionally. Number 5, I stop at Starbucks after work, all the time. I stop at Starbucks after work all the time, and all the time works best at the end of the sentence. My teacher gives hard tests often. We have some choices here. My teacher often gives hard tests. Often my teacher gives hard tests. My teacher gives hard tests often. 3 choices. Okay, number 7. This is really true for those of you not from Colorado. It snows in Colorado in May from time to time. This really does happen. Come to Colorado in May, you'll see. From time to time, it snows in Colorado in May. Or, it snows in Colorado in May from time to time. Number 8, my sister wears her hair in a ponytail, usually. We have some choices. My sister usually wears her hair in a ponytail, before the verb. Usually, my sister wears her hair in a ponytail. His father drinks coffee rarely. His father rarely drinks coffee, or you can say his father drinks coffee rarely. You can also say rarely his father drinks coffee. Number 10, I do my homework after dinner most of the time. We have a couple of choices here. Are you ready? Most of the time, I do my homework after dinner. I do my homework after dinner most of the time. Her brother is on time occasionally. I guess don't count on him. We have a few choices. Are you ready? Occasionally her brother is on time. Or her brother is occasionally on time. We have the be verb, so the verb comes first, then the adverb of frequency. Her brother is on time occasionally. A typo, not one time, on time. And number 12. Linda is well prepared, always. Only one way to do this. Linda is always well prepared. Be verb first, then the adverb of frequency. Okay, we've done a lot of things. We've covered a lot of ground. Let's do some reviewing. Adverbs of frequency tell how often you do something. Expressions of frequency consist of several words. They also tell how often you do something. We use adverbs of frequency and expressions of frequency in the simple present and the simple past tense, not with the continuous tenses. And finally, they go in specific places in a sentence. Well, we've learned a lot about adverbs and expressions of frequency. I hope you know how often you do something. Thank you for tuning in to Learning English. I'm Misty Davidson with Common Ground International. Hope you've learned a lot, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.